Hello everyone, this is Sir Fredrick.Jr. Today we are going to have a tutorial on the topic of fertilization. So we'll look at the fertilization up to birth. Okay, I call you special because you are the last grade 9s in the syllabus of 2013. So therefore you need also to work hard, as you being the last one will never have any grade 9s. So I want you to review this video so that when you watch, it helps you to revise. What do you see? Definitely, you are seeing two cells. Some of you might think it is a snake. Oh, well, that is not a snake. For us to understand the process of fertilization, we need to understand those two cells. So I'm going to take you a little bit of these two cells so that we get some background information so that we understand this process of fertilization. So we are having the sperm cell, commonly called sperm cell. Scientifically, we call this one as spermatozoa. So we're having the other side, on the other side, we're having an ovum, which is also called, we also call it an egg, just an egg, a female egg. Okay. So let me run through some of the structures of this. So as you can see, the sperm has got the head. Okay, this head it contains a nucleus inside, probably a large nucleus, and it has a sharp head this side on the edges there, which we are calling an acrosome. All right, so some of the features of this that it has a large nucleus. This is because it carries the half of the father's information, genetic information. So this is all half of the information from the father is carried. Then that's why it has a very large nucleus to carry genetic information. So the acrosome is actually a sharp edge of a male gamete, and this actually contains some enzymes. There's some enzymes that are found in acrosome. So as we go on, we're going to look at what does this enzyme do. Okay, so again, it has actually the middle part, this middle part which you are seeing, which contains a various mitochondria. And mitochondrion, we learned under the cell that this is the site where respiration takes place. So definitely, having a good number of mitochondria in the sperm cell makes ensure that the sperm cell has a lot of energy that is required for it to move. Again, it has a tail, in which some books, when you go to you read higher books, they will call it a flagella. Okay, so it is called flagella. Some books refer to it as flagella. So what is the purpose of this tail? This tail continue wagging out, helping the sperm cell to swim. So this is how it moves. So it makes the sperm cell to move forward as it is wagging from left to right, just like that. So the function of the tail there is to help this sperm cell to swim. All right, those are some of the important parts of the sperm cell. All right, so when we come to an ovum or an egg, we'll also notice that we have nucleus there. Okay, then we have follicle cells of corona outside there, and we have the cytoplasma. Okay, then we have vitellinar membrane. Okay, just there, this is vitellinar membrane. Okay, all right. So vitellinar membrane also contains some chemicals that direct the sperm to swim towards it. All right, so these are little things that you should be aware of. And where does these two cells produced? The sperm cell is produced from the testes, while the ovum is produced from ovary. Okay, so ovary produce an ovum or an egg, while testes produce a sperm cell. So now this makes us have a transition to the next thing that we want to discuss. So now, before fertilization takes place, definitely there must be some sexual relationship between a female and a male. So during sexual intercourse, or rather we call it copulation, the male will release millions of sperm cells into the vagina, and these millions of cells, they will actually start swimming towards the egg. All right. Now, when these sperm cell reaches the egg, you could see there will be a little kind of battle. Okay, everyone wants to go inside the nucleus of the ovum. So you could see one cell will enter here. Now, how does it enter there? All right. When we are reviewing the structure of the sperm, we learned that it has got acrosome. Acrosome. So this part contains enzymes. So these enzymes dissolve the vitellinar wall of the ovum. So when they dissolve it, it penetrates inside. Once it penetrates inside, the tail of the sperm cuts itself, it go away. No job. The job of the tail finish there immediately. It enters inside the ovum. Now this wall of the ovum closes to prevent other sperm cell to enter it. It actually secretes some chemicals that prevents other sperm cells to enter, because there is already one sperm cell inside there. When this nucleus of the sperm cell and the nucleus of the ovum mix together, rather we use the term fuse together, we call it fertilization. So fertilization has taken place there. So how are we going to define fertilization? What is it that we are going to request from you in the exam or in your test? What is it that you have to define fertilization? So the correct definition you give, you say fertilization is the fusion of a spermatozoa with an ovum. Okay. Now, the second question you should ask yourself, where does this process take place? This process takes place in the fallopian tube. It takes place in the fallopian tube. The other term you can use, oviduct. So fertilization takes place in the oviduct. So you need to pay attention to this because we ask you in which organ does this process takes place. So the correct answers there is fallopian tube or oviduct. Oh, wow. So we've described the process of fertilization. Then let's go further and discuss what happened after fertilization. What happened after fertilization? Oh, well, the process now will continue going. Just after fertilization, the organism that is formed is called zygote. It's called zygote. Remember last time when we were in class, I used to tell you that if you want to remember the correct spelling for this, just pronounce it zygote so that you don't forget. All right. So after forming zygote, then after a few days or few hours, we are going to have these cells start developing. A zygote is just a single cell organism, but after some time it starts developing. So let us now look at the embryo development. So how does it happen? So after fertilization has taken place in the fallopian tube, the small cell start moving, perhaps being helped by the C-related cells that are inside the fallopian tube. So it will be wiped out until it reaches the walls of the uterus. So it gets attached itself to the walls of the uterus. So when it gets attached itself to the walls of the uterus, this process, we call it implantation. So implantation is actually the process in which the organ after fertilization get attached itself to the walls of the uterus. So then the development will begin now. So in the first month, of course, there will be some improvement, increasing the number of cells. The cells actually increases in 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 16, and etc. Just like that, it starts increasing. Now, after 2 months, if I were to put those in weeks, it could be actually 6th to 8th week. So what are you expecting to happen in the development of this embryo? So the embryo, you might see the development of the head, ears, arms, legs, organs such as heart, liver, stomach, and the kidney. So when the embryo reach at this stage, it is no longer called a zygote. It is called now an embryo. So some of the noticeable improvement or development, don't forget, ears. Okay, we can also have arms here, legs in the, okay, heart. We can also have liver formed. Okay, so these are some of the noticeable development that you could see in the 6th to 8th week. Incorrect, that one, 8th week. Rather in months, it's a second month. Then we move on now to the 3rd month. In weeks, this might be 11th to 12th week. So what are some of the noticeable development that you could detect in the 3rd month? So you could see a fetus start to move. So there is some movement recorded here, movement. Okay. because it might start now moving its limbs, okay, kicking, okay. It might even start training boxing there. All right. So it can also turn around, just like that. So these are some of the noticeable development in the third month, or in weeks 11th to 12th week. So the development continue going. So in the actual fourth month, this is about 16th week. Okay, so what do we see there? Reproductive system starts to form. Okay, so they start to develop. At this stage also, the fetus can produce, an embryo can produce now some sounds. Okay. Then what happens in the fifth month? And this is about 20th week. What happens here in the fifth month? Okay, so in months fifth, then in weeks, this is about 20 weeks. So you could observe some hair to start growing, okay, on the head. Okay, so hair grows on the head. That's why it is impossible to have a baby being born without hair, because the hair started developing about a 20th week or in the fifth month. So the time it will reach at birth, some hair could have developed. Okay, then in the 6th to 9th week, so 6th, as that's 6th month, to 9th month. Okay, so I'll just summarize this one to 9th month. What is it that you are going to observe here? So at these stages, this means 6, 7, 8, and 9. You will notice the increase, rapid increase in size. Okay, so the child grows fast at these stages, which is actually in weeks. If we were to translate these weeks, in weeks 6th to 9th month, it's going to start from 21st week to actually 40 weeks. Okay, so you're gonna record some rapid increase in the development of the fetus. Now, what do we call the period of this embryo development from the point of fertilization to birth? So we call it gestation period. So if you are asked to define gestation period, this is the period from fertilization to birth of the fetus. So that's how we can define gestation period. So if you were asked to summarize the stages of development in human in the pregnancy, how would you say it? So in the simple ways, so we have zygote. Okay, so the zygote develop into what? Into an embryo. Develop an embryo. Then after some few times, okay, some few weeks, few months, we are going to have now a fetus. I know when I write this, you are thinking of pronouncing it as foetus, so that you don't forget the spelling. All right, so from there now, we are going to have a newborn baby. So we are going to have a baby being born. Okay, so what is the correct term refers to a newborn baby? Okay, so the other term of the newborn baby, we also call them, you can pronounce that one, neonate. So this term describe the baby for first 28 years, first 28 days from being the day this child was born. So neonate is just a term used to refer to a child for period of 28 days from the day this child was born. Okay, so that's the term we use. All right, so having looked at this, now let's look at the stages of labor. What are some of the stages happen during a birth? So what is birth in general? So birth is just the act of pushing out the child or infants from the woman's uterus. Sometimes birth cannot occur naturally, so there is other forms that are used, and these are methods that in where a woman is actually cut on her tummy using surgical procedures. Okay, so the normal birth is called spontaneous birth. This is when just a child is born naturally. But if that child has not been born naturally, the mother has to go some surgical procedures, then that is artificial one. So we have two types, or we have many types of this, but for now we'll discuss, I'll only touch what we call cesarean. Okay, cesarean surgical method, okay, or section. So it is actually this operation is also called, in simple terms, C-section, or just a Caesar, or they can call it just a Caesar. Now, what happens there? Okay, so the surgical procedure which involves the cesarean, this is where the woman is now cut on the abdomen, making a small slit where a baby could be taken out of the uterus, and that is actually what happens there, Caesar. Okay, now, so natural birth then has to take place through the vagina, or what we call the birth canal. Okay, so now let's discuss this natural process of normal childbirth. Okay, now perhaps you can ask yourself, how does the woman knows that she's about to go to labor? Or well, there could be some signs such as regular contraction of her uterus at some times. Okay, and this can last for some hours or days. Okay, if the woman is just giving birth for the first time. So these processes are called pre-labor indication. Okay, so these days the doctor would help the woman to relax. Okay, So they can give them something just to make them be relaxed, okay, so that they are ready. And actually pre-labor in the women who have experienced or who've been giving birth before, it's actually shorter, okay, it's shorter. So let's begin with the first stage, okay. Let's begin with the first stage. Now, what is it that I want you to listen to? What is it that you should pay attention to? I want you to pay attention to what events takes place at each stage of labor or birth. So the first stage that you are seeing here is actually called dilation. It's actually called dilation. Or well, perhaps you are asking yourself, what is this word mean? So dilation is just simply means in science becoming wider or enlarged. Okay. So now what is it that get enlarged or become wider? Oh well, in the first stage, the cervix, as you could see on the diagram, the cervix widen. Okay. It widen about at least 3 to 5 centimeters. Okay. At this point, it's a two-way thing. It's either the woman might have some active contraction before dilation or not. Okay. Then what is the second thing that takes place here, apart from dilation of the cervix? Okay. So other thing that takes place there is breaking of amniotic sac, breaking of amniotic sac or membrane. Okay, so when amniotic sac breaks, as we learned, amniotic fluid flows out of the woman through her vagina. It goes out. Okay, when this happens, or well, in literal sense, some they call it woman's water break. So they refer to that fluid as water, so they call it woman's water break. Okay, so by then it enters into the second stage. So what happens during stage 2 of birth starts when the cervix dilate. When the cervix dilate about 10 centimeters. This is the full dilation of the cervix in the second stage. So this stage is completed when the baby is pushed out of the mother's womb. So during this stage as well, as you could see on the diagram there, the baby is about to come out. Okay, and as well as I've talked about, the cervix has dilated about 10 centimeters so that the head could pass. So the moment this child come out of the womb, this stage ends. So during this stage, the uterus, the walls of the uterus contracts every after 5 minutes, and the contraction of this lasts about 45 to 90 seconds every after 5 minutes. So contraction perhaps mostly is accompanied by the need to push. So the mother also push together with contraction, it helps to speed up the process of birth. So the length of the birth depends on one, the size of the baby, okay, the woman's ability to push, as well as the position of the baby. So sometimes it happens that the baby is not yet turned, and that could also lengthen the period of birth of the second stage. So perhaps on the diagram you are seeing this, which is saying crowning of a head. What does this mean? So this means that the moment the head of a child appears on the mouth of the birth canal, and the doctor could see that the head is appearing, that is what we call the crowning of the head. So this is just the visibility of the head of a child at the mouth of the vagina. So again, during this stage, the head get elongated so that it could reduce and come out easily. So this is the end of the second stage. So third stage. At this time now, the baby has been born. So this stage is actually encompasses with the expulsion of the placenta. So the placenta is get removed from the uterus of the mother. So the mother also, just after birth, the mother will experience some contraction. Okay. So this contraction will come to remove the so at this stage actually they clamp the umbilical cord. Okay, they clamp the umbilical cord. It is painless. The reason why is because umbilical cord doesn't have nerve cells, so they clamp it as this get expelled. So the average time that in which this third stage lasts, it lasts about 5 to 15 minutes. 5 to 15 minutes. Then this process is done. So some books, the third stage of delivery is called also after birth. It is also called after birth because this stage comes immediately after the child has been born. So get to know these things in case you are reading a different book. This is just the same thing. Okay, so you need to know these steps that I've gone through with you, and most of all the time you need to know what does each term that I've described mean. Okay, starting from fertilization, gestation period, implantation, and birth, and the stages of labor. You need to know them, because sometimes in the exam we can just bring the diagram like this one, then we'll ask you to identify what is stage this, what events are taking place at this stage. So you need to be familiar with. So let's now go through some of the questions that you might experience or might meet based on this topic. All right. So if you could see, we have this paper which I extracted from certain past papers, and you've written this before in your tests. So the following diagram shows reproductive cells in human beings. which of the labeled gametes is that of a male. Okay, so if I were you, I could go with E. So E is the one. Okay, just write that, nothing, don't add anything, because in the process of you wanting to shine, you might make mistake when you make a wrong spelling. So just put a letter there, E. Okay, give one reason for your answer. You have so many reasons to give here. You say because it has a tail, because it has a tail, or rather a flagellum. That's what has convinced you that indeed that part E or diagram E belongs to the gamete of the male. It has a tail. Okay, the other physical feature you could pick, it has the sharp head. Okay, if you could see there, that one can be also accepted. State the process taking place at G. So, well, and we reviewed this in the diagrams that I was explaining during fertilization. So the process that is taking place there, you say fertilization. Just like that. Name the organ in which human body where the process demonstrated in G occurs. You know where it takes place. And I mentioned that it takes place in what? In oviduct. The other term you could use is fallopian tube. Just like that. So you put there fallopian tube. Just like that. You are passing the exam. Then describe gestation period. So the question is saying describe. So you need to explain a little. So, and how are you going to explain? As I will describe it, you say, this is the period from fertilization to birth, when the infant pushed out of what? Out of the woman's womb. Just like that. You've described the gestation period. Oh, this is the human development from fertilization to birth. So that's how you can answer, and you get everything there, just like that. Then we move on to the next other way they can ask you. As usual, they will ask you to identify something there. So as you could see in the question, identify gamete R. So gamete R, what name are we going to give? So you can just say sperm. You can also say spermatozoa. Just like that. Simple as that. Then name the organ that produces gamete Q. So what is this gamete Q we are seeing here? Definitely, this gamete Q could be an ovum. So what organ produces this? It is actually ovary. What process occurs between gamete R and Q? Gamete R and Q. So when these combine themselves, when they fuse together, the process as we've described it, it is what? It is fertilization. Now D, state the organ in which zygote is produced. Where is zygote is produced? Definitely, instead of asking you where does fertilization takes place, they just ask you where zygote is produced. This could be what? Fallopian tube. Fallopian tube. or oviduct. Just like that. Then what term is given to the period from time the zygote is produced to the time of birth? This was the definition for what? Gestation. The gestation period. How long is this period of development from zygote to childbirth in human being? How long does gestation last? So you have three options here because the question did not specify how long. They didn't say in months, days, or weeks. So you say, if you want to start in months, you say it lasts 9 months. Then in weeks, it lasts what? 40 weeks. Then in days, you could say 278 to 280 days. So those who answered like this, any of these were accepted answers. So this is how far we can go today. So I wish you all the best in your exams. Study hard. When you have a question, please come to my office. Let's discuss that question so that we are clear. Bye-bye. Thank you.